Good morning, party people. I hope you all had fun at Cruise Union and beyond. So, today we have a slightly interesting day. We've got low pressure here, which means that everybody's having a terrible time watching the eclipse in all of the good places, but it should be absolutely gorgeous here. So, we've got this low pressure here, high pressure here, and we've got a ridge just here, which means that the high pressure kind of stays reasonably trapped where we are, and we obviously get a lot of heating and a lot of lifting. So that's reasonably important. And the other important thing here is that this is the most variable day that we've had all week. So from that point of view, it could be quite exciting. So just generally kind of starting from the top, we have the evening breeze from 110, so that's kind of coming in from the southeast, and that largely stays quite stable for most of the day. So that's the kind of general synoptic driver, and that also links up with the sea breeze. What we have, however, is a lot of uncertainty around once we kind of start heating, it's very difficult to know what's actually going to happen. So some of the models are suggesting temperatures of nearly 30 degrees. However, some are saying kind of high teens, low 20s, which is quite difficult. So I think it's probably going to be just over 30 degrees on shore and probably just, what I've written there on the water. And what that will hopefully do is give us a little bit of stability in the afternoon. As we can see here, but the most unstable time is that period from 11 till kind of 1 o'clock, where we are, really kind of hoping for a little bit of sea breeze to come in. And you can see that the direction is quite unstable, it's quite unreliable, and that is due to the drivers. So I talked about this a lot yesterday to people in passing, but there are two very distinct air masses when you've got a sea breeze. You've got the heavy gradient wind, and you've got the light and fluffy sea breeze, and you can almost taste the air density changing as these come in. And yeah, I'd really like to challenge you to feel that today, and you can start to understand what's driving the wind that you're sailing in. The power that comes out of a sea breeze isn't quite as strong as a gradient wind because the air density is slightly less. So, kind of looking into the evening, we've then got a little bit of pulse of wind somewhere between kind of 4 and 5 o'clock. The timing of that is reasonably unknown, and you can see that that's coming from the south. We can see this in the tables as well. So as the temperature stabilizes, we end up losing this overnight breeze. That then kind of equalizes, and then we start to get a little bit of a sea breeze, and then a big pulse in the afternoon, evening. And we won't go into details as to why that happens, but it's reasonably certain that that will. Directionally reasonably stable. It goes a little bit funky in the middle of the day when we have the different drivers, and then as that pulse of breeze comes in, we also get a big right-hand shift. So from that point of view, reasonably kind of stable for a race officer to set course in. And we can see that with the wind shear, we've got reasonable, that's kind of what you would expect. A lot more mixing in the morning and evening, and then in the middle of the day, we've got that sea breeze. And so we have a lot less. Directionally, it's reasonably interesting. I think it looks a bit of a jumble sale, to be honest. These are generated from the differences in wind direction at height on some of my models. So sometimes it goes a little bit funky. But we can see that the speed shear is probably the most important. This directional shear doesn't actually tell us much. And actually it does. It tells us that the whole thing is very unstable and that we are in a situation where we're kind of looking at lots of different wind directions, and what that does is it just kind of mixes everything up a little bit. So expect gusts from weird directions, especially in the kind of mid-afternoon. Sea state, it's going to be hopefully a little bit less violent than yesterday morning, but it's probably somewhere around yesterday afternoon. Again, from that southeast, which, has a reasonable amount of fetch. And yeah, probably used the same pages of the venue guide as last time as well. So we've obviously talked about the confidence level being really low, and yeah, the temperature spread of 8.5 degrees is probably kind of the driver of kind of what's actually going to happen there. And that's mostly driven by clouds and kind of radiative heating. It's nothing to do with the eclipse that we're going to see later. And yeah, apart from that, very little convection because it's not really got the drivers. So yeah, the other scenarios are that we also have the possibility of the wind dropping around midday and kind of staying reasonably low if we don't get the sea breeze drivers. And yeah, that would be pretty messy. And alternatively, we could also have a really nice 12 knots with, a really nice right hand shift. So that's, they're kind of my options. So I definitely go out there and see what's happening, and it will all start to make a little bit more sense by the time we're launching, and then definitely by the time we're racing. So yeah, thank you very much, and I will chat to you soon.